Okay, so we're actually going to use Chi-Chi as an example for building out some stuff. So I have your little map here that you had in one of your documents. I don't know if you submitted a high-res one. I apologize. I'm using just the low-res screenshot from your document, but it's just for examples. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to use this as a way for my brain to kind of start ripping stuff apart from this level design and paint over and try and think about all the different things that I'll need in order to make this game happen. So I'm going to open up 3D Max here. I'm going to put down just a plane. And I'm going to put a texture on there. I'm going to use my compact one because I'm old. Put the texture in here. I took a little screenshot and okay. And then so if you bring a screenshot in, I'm sure you've all done this in class before, but the easiest way to make sure that it's at the proper aspect ratio is just to add an unwrap, modifier onto it. Just a regular unwrap modifier, not a unwrap UVW. And they have a little bitmap fit at the bottom. Again, I'm sure you're familiar with this already, but I'm going to select my picture again. Oops. And it's going to scale my unwrap to the proportions of the picture, and then I can kind of scale it down. Nice handy way of just making sure your stuff is at proper aspect ratio. Not that the one for Chi-Chi is like super important right now, but still nice to have. So I'm going to take a look at this, and I'm going to actually put this on the front viewport. So there we go, I can look at it on the front. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of block out some ideas here for what we're actually going to need. I'm going to worry about how these fit together later, and then obviously for texturing. So I'm just going to use a little box. So I'm going to kind of start in the beginning. So I'm like, okay, well, they're going to have thin, small platforms. I really like, you guys have the snow on the top to show where the playable area is versus the walls. So you have some big ones here too, and you have the floor space. So we're going to reuse hopefully a lot of those things. And it's going to kind of depend on each team how they do this stuff. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways on how you can go about this. So you can do walls. Your walls and floors kind of look, I guess, the same. They have the same kind of texture in there. This one's just a little darker, I suppose. But let's just get a couple shapes of what you need in here. So I'm going to do, let's get you a pillar. And then I'm going to do, okay, so you have a floor. So I could edit this already. So we have a floor mesh, and I'll show you a couple different things that I'm thinking about. So we have, let's say, the tops. I'm going to slap some texture or colors on this. So I'm going to put a white texture on this, just called snow, and this will just be called ice. Now, it's not a good idea to have lots of materials on your objects in Unity, but just for the purposes of prototyping, it doesn't matter. But in the final game, you really only want one material per object as much as you can. Okay, so that's kind of for our floor now, just to start with. But we're going to go over here, and we have, okay, so we're going to have really thin floors and really thick floors. So I'm going to have to think about that. So I think I'm going to stick with my ice on the top idea, and then having just blocks of ice I can use. So then I'm going to take this ice mesh here, and I'm going to be like, okay, well, they're going to need a really thin one as well. So ones like this, and yeah, I mean, your maps probably aren't going to be one-to-one, but that's okay. All right, when we're white boxing, we could probably just reuse this mesh over here too. They don't have to be exactly like the map. We have some big, thick ones, and okay, we'll talk about that as well. Maybe I'll bring this one over here just to kind of get myself a good idea of some of the scales. Okay, so we have our ice wall, we have our ramp I'm going to leave till later because it's a little bit more custom. Now they have really crazy ceilings as well. They have ceilings that can go in and out. They're very kind of wobbly, and they're going to need lots of these little pathways for the snowflake to go through. So this becomes a bigger challenge because now I understand Chi-Chi can't go through these things. So these are solid for Chi-Chi, but the snowflake can go into the little tiny areas. So we can't use any of the assets we have here so far, and again, I haven't really developed those. So we're gonna need some ceiling assets. So I'm gonna need, some bigger kind of assets for the ceiling. I'm gonna make another material here that's just gonna be a different blue, just to kind of say, hey, this is gonna be our ceiling. Okay, so we're gonna need probably just some big wobbly ones. We're gonna need some really thin, small ones as well. And then the challenge is gonna be how to make the really tiny sections. So let's see what else they need. They have some smaller areas like this one, and some other crazy shapes. We need an edge. And then we'll deal with that later. So let's talk about the floor for now. So the floor is kind of made up out of a few multiple pieces. We have an ice piece or a snow piece that's going to cover all the tops of these things, and then we have ice pieces. So when I first start blocking out my modular kits, I don't model them very well. They're all very crappy. They're very blocky, but the scale of them and the size and amounts of them is very important to me. So I am going to assume that we are going to have snow on top of all our platforms. So I'm gonna just model some really bad snow at first. So just like, actually, you know what? I'm gonna add an here. And I'm just gonna model some like high, not very nice kind of snow for the top here, okay? So this is where Chi-Chi is going to walk on. So this is gonna go on top of any platform that I'm going to use. I'm gonna put my pivot point here in the center for now. So let's think about all the different use cases that we have for this. So we have, this is gonna be we're gonna call it snow cap or something like that, or snow floor. This is gonna be long A. And I'm gonna make myself a couple other ones. I kind of made it an arbitrary size. I'm not really paying attention to it. If you really want to get fancy, you can make it to a grid as well. So you know the long one is like 3 meters long, 2 meters, 1 meter for the medium and small. Depends how fancy you want to get, but I'm gonna eyeball my stuff too. I'm gonna need sections that are also small. So I'm gonna shrink this down a little bit. Let me get rid of a couple edges here. Gonna have a bit of a smaller face one. And then we're gonna have a very small one here as well. Now, the important thing to note about these ones right now is they are really only meant for very flat ground, and they should all connect to each other. So what you might be seeing here is I'm leaving all my sides completely flat, which is going to look super ugly at the edge of a platform. And I can't really round this out because it's going to look bad. I can't connect the two together. So I'm making them flat so I could do this in Unity and create as long of a platform as I want. And I could use the small ones and stuff like that as variety pieces to kind of break up the tiling of it. So now I know I'm also going to need edge pieces. At some point in my concepts here, we have areas like this where the caps go over the side, or areas like this where the snow ends somewhere, right? It has this like little bubbling effect on the side, and that's great. So we're going to need a cap piece to finalize this stuff. So I'm gonna kind of line this up here. And I'm going to model just a really simple kind of cap over here. Just a one-sided cap for now. So maybe it'll go much lower. And then it's going to be rounded at the edge to show people that this is, like a cap. Okay, so again, not very good, but just kind of just like as a block out. Now I know I'm going to need probably, I could probably get away with having one of these, but I'm also going to make one for the other side. I can mirror it in Unity, but I'm actually going to do one here because I wanted to have some variety, just so in case they're ever close together, they look a little bit different. So this doesn't have to be super different, but something like that. Maybe getting bigger will be okay, but something like that, right? So now I have two caps. I might make these caps a little shorter, closer to the edge, because I don't want this big straight line over here. So now I have little cap pieces that I can connect to the edge of these things, which is great. My pivot points are a mess right now, so we're not going to talk about those for a little bit. And then the last thing I think I'm really going to need for my snow, based just on this concept of this map here, is I think I'm going to make a cap that's all together, so I don't have to place individual caps for a specific size like this. Let's say this is kind of what the Chi-Chi team is looking. Right? Both of these together are probably a little too big to put on here, so I'm going to make a cap that's going to kind of fit on top of these ones. So let's just move that over here. And I'm just going to symmetry this right now just to kind of make it faster. Like that. And then I can change it up a little bit. Nice thing about this being its own cap, it doesn't have to connect to anything. It's just going to exist in its own little world. So there we go. This, I feel, is enough for me to get through the levels that I know are going to be in Chi-Chi so far for the snow caps. So we have a large, a medium, a small, 2 end caps, and a solo cap on its own. I'm going to name these things accordingly. So I have snow floor long, snow floor medium, snow floor small, snow floor end cap A, cap. And this one we'll call top cap. Actually, wait, I'm going to call it cap top. Naming is very important sometimes. When I put these into Unity, if I name them all end cap and then top cap, the end caps and top caps are going to be in different parts of my list because they start with a different letter. But if I label them snow floor cap underscore whatever they are, then all the caps will be together, and then that way I won't have to look for them as much. So cap end A. So really think about your naming as well and how things are going to get organized. You want all your floors to stay together, things like that. So you want to make sure that alphabetically it all kind of makes sense. Okay, so we have these guys. Their pivots are kind of wild right now. I'm going to start with my pivot on the big guy here. I went to effect pivot only, and I just did center to object just to kind of start. But I'm actually going to move this guy over here, and I'm going to move him over to probably the top left corner. I can do a vertex snap as well, but if you want to do that, you can turn on this 3D snap. I'm recording this video, by the way, so if I'm going fast, you'll get a chance to watch this again. Vertex snap over here. And let's just snap this pivot to like this back corner. I'm going to do that for all of my guys here. So they're all going to be on the back corner of my mesh, all the pivots. So that way they're all the same. And that way they can all snap together. This one is going to be on the inside corner because he's backwards. And this one I'm going to center, but I'm probably going to also keep his pivot on the back but middle. Over here somewhere. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as when you align them all together, they can somewhat fit. Okay, so we have our caps. Let's turn off our 3D snap here. So now we're going to make our ice chunks for Chi-Chi. So we know we're going to do this pillar over here. And I'm going to shrink this down a little bit so the ice cap sticks over it. I get a nicer little break and there's no Z fighting. So this will be my kind of width for my Chi-Chi platforms. Maybe that's too short. Maybe the team wants it longer. I don't know. That's kind of up to them. For me, this is my arbitrary size that I'm going to pick. Now, I'm going to kind of just mimic the floors that I have so I can kind of use the same amount of blocks for here. So I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to make sure that all my floors or my ice blocks or whatever I want to call them, they all line up to the edges of these meshes. So that way they're all very similar. This one is actually, I'm going to make this snow thing a little bigger because I want it to be able to work on all my different meshes here. I don't want to have two of these meshes really. So I don't really need two of these, but I just wanted to make sure it was fine. Okay, so we're going to go in here. We're going to make something like that. So these are all very big blocks. They're all very tall. They're as tall as this pillar right here, right? So maybe that's not the best choice for me to go by like an arbitrary pillar size, because then all of these will be basically the same height if I use them over there. Maybe I want to make these in smaller chunks. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me, thank you. So that's kind of a hard one. How many chunks do I need? You know, how far does this floor go underneath? It's kind of tough. A lot of that will depend on your texturing. If I have a ice texture for my blocks here, I kind of need them to tile across these chunks, because if I put these two chunks together, they should all match, and that's kind of the next challenge of this modular building set, is how do you actually make the textures tile across things. You can use a world space texture too, and all that. There's lots of other solutions for it, but that is definitely a big planning kind of thing for how you develop these. Hey, Tegan. We have different solutions for how we could handle this, and I'll kind of talk about that too. So these are going to be my basic blockouts. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to actually, let's see what these are called. These are snow floor. These are going to be called ice walls, I guess, or something. I don't know, whatever I want to call them. Ice wall. Okay, so I have long. Yeah, I guess I did this one as A. I always put letters, but you don't have to. I always do letters in case I want variation. So then if you want long A, B, C, D, you'll have those for yourself. But and then these ones are going to be the same. So I think I'm probably not going to need two of these. Well, no, one's maybe going to be the edge. So this one is actually going to be an edge piece that's going to belong. It's not just a floor like a filler space. It's also a wall for this game. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to chamfer the sides over here because I want them to look nice and smooth and soft. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing for this one, but I'm going to do it on both sides on this one because I want it to be for both of those. So this will be, what's this one called? Ice wall edge, okay? And this one's going to be called ice wall pillar. So here we go. We have quite a few assets, just as basic building blocks so far, to try and get just this this basic level of Chi-Chi going without the ramp and without, actually I'm missing a couple other things, so I don't have this guy yet as well. So this one is tough. So now I need to think about, okay, well this is a lot of different things. It's a wall, it's a ceiling, and it's like a filler piece as well. So how do we go about doing that? And then also this is going to be a wall over here. So if I want this to be rounded, I don't really want it going all the way to the top because it'll look weird. So now I have some interesting kind of and difficult choices to make. So how can I do that? So let's talk about what we want to do here. So this is going to be like an ice platform or ice wall, I don't know, sliver, chunk, whatever we want to call it. All right, I might actually base it off of like these guys as well. So let's say they're thin ones like this. But these ones could also be ceilings, right? So they could be ceilings and walls. So this is going to get tough, right? I'm going to basically, we have our own ceiling meshes that are going to go up here for the main cavern, but our floors can also have ceilings because according to the concepts, we now have areas in the floor that the player can go into, which is going to get very tough to block out and make as well. So now I need to start thinking about how to make these kind of sections, and then these. I forgot this was even here, this like little 45-degree kind of cavern in this block. So how can we assemble various kind of shapes in here while maintaining a couple of the decisions we made here to have chamfered edges on corners and maybe like a different ceiling of some kind. So again, our assets are going to start getting really crazy. So this one I'm going to do, this one's going to be called Ice Wall Ceiling Long. And this is when I asked you to take your paint overs and extrapolate an asset list out of this. This is kind of what I was talking about. It's really good to have these paint overs for your future projects when you do your capstone next year. This is how I think, typically you should sit down and do it, is really look at your concepts and try and understand them as best you can as assets for your game. So I'm going to turn this into a ceiling. So I'm going to chamfer my bottom edges here. And I am making things a little bit more complicated for myself. I could just do blocks, but blocks don't look very nice. I want all my areas to have nice soft edges. Okay, so now I have ceilings. I'm probably going to want to do a small, medium, and large ceiling as well, but we'll just leave it at this for now. I'm going to also move my pivot over here like I did for the other one. Okay, so now let's think about what happens if I have an edge like this one over here, and I have, oops. And I have a ceiling piece right here. I could just kind of smush these together. I guess I didn't do the proper pivot for this one yet. And I could do this together, and they kind of match up. You might get some Z fighting in the corners. I have a couple options I could do for this. I can make a mesh that goes over top of this as like some sort of icicle or other art mesh that I can put on top of things to cover up any seams. But if you want to make a truly tileable kind of experience, you would want a corner piece that has a bend in it. And this is, whether you're doing 3D or 2D, this would kind of apply. So again, it all depends on me and how fancy I want to get with all my level designs and my art and all that kind of jazz, right? So start thinking about, okay, well, how do we transition for this, right? Do we smush or do we make custom assets? For a big AAA game, or not AAA game, but like if I was working in the studio, I would find a nice, elegant solution to make this happen. For our purposes and in class, I would probably be okay with going into Unity, smushing these things together like this, and just kind of making stuff like this. It doesn't feel very icy and caverny, right? But it does work. So what I actually might do on top of this as like a polish item, and this is something I could leave to the end, and if I don't get to it, that stinks, and it might not look as nice, but it will still be finished, is to create some sort of edge piece over here, like an icicle or something like that. So even if I do a temp one right now, I could create a piece that's going to be a connector, right? I can kind of treat it more like these are girders in a way in my mind. And be like, well, if this was like I-beams, they would have something like this to connect them here. And I can do just like a simple little ice mesh like this or something like that. Again, I know it's silly, but sometimes you gotta have some funky solutions for this stuff. And you can make it look a little organic. This is just a block out, so I'm not gonna spend like a lot of time modeling it, but I can, make it look a little bit better. So the nice thing about taking these white boxes or the paint overs that you have, and obviously this looks kind of crummy, so I would have to think about, well, what would ice do? Ice would kind of like sit on the bottom of these things, maybe. Right? It would just kind of like sit in the corner there. Probably wouldn't go all the way to the edge. That's a little overkill. So the nice thing about taking your paint overs and trying to do stuff like this is you're going to create problems for yourself. You're going to be like, oh, I want it to look really nice. I want it to look really smooth. But I'm not going to have the time for that. Or you're going to try and do it and you're going to be like, oh, right, but all these 100 different situations are not going to work well with what I'm trying to do. So how do I solve this problem? And then that's most of your job is problem solving. What do I do to fix this? So, some crappy icicles here. Change the mesh copy in Max 2023. It used to just be hold, shift, and drag to copy an object, but now you have to hold control, shift, and drag. It's been driving me crazy. I just switched over to Max 2023 like last week for a contract that I'm doing, and I've been losing my mind. Okay, so here we go. Here's a little icicle frozen corner kind of mesh I made. And I could put these in any area that I feel isn't working very well. And now I can start thinking about, okay, well, what's the floor going to look like in this area? If somebody, if this is now a platform that someone's going to walk over like this, right? And I'm going to have this over here, right? Okay, well, that looks pretty cool. Maybe I can make a little snowdrift mesh that I could cover up some of those areas with. And it's starting to feel a little bit more organic, right? And I could also make some decisions where I'm like, yeah, you know what? This is a ceiling for these things, but this is like super, oops, sorry. My shortcuts don't work here. The left is just flat, but there's really no reason for me to leave it flat aside from the very edge, because I want to make sure that it So now we have that. Same with the walls. Because this is an ice wall and these are my ice edges, there's no reason for these things to stay completely flat. So I could start making some of these choices early on as well. So I may want the top and the bottom to stay flat, but maybe not in the middle. So I can start, making some decisions where, okay, well, let's maybe buckle this one in a little, right? And we could have some much nicer, funner kind of meshes that way. Okay, so now we have a ceiling long. I guess this was this pillar. We could have some variations of this, that's fine. I forgot to set the pivot on this guy, so give me a second here. Pivots are going to be important when we bring this stuff into Unity. Boop, boop, boop. All right. And I'm going to go and I'm going to model this one up a little bit too, just since I did the other one. I might as well. That one goes in a little, so maybe this one will bulge out a little bit. Yeah.
So would these bulgings affect like?
Yeah, it's up to you, right? It's up to you how you want to handle the collisions for these. This may not be ideal for you in your game. Maybe you'll be like, oh no, that's a horrible idea for how our mechanics work. But that's kind of up to you how you decide to handle this, right? Same, and even like you can go very subtly with how this works. So let's say this is my ice pillar, and I don't like how square my ice pillar is even in a white box kind of stage. So even if I add just like a little bit of bulging and je ne sais quoi to it, your collisions could still be very straight, right? There's nothing really stopping you from having like a fairly straight collision even for something like this. So, dokes. And this is a pillar, so I'm actually going to do something atypical here for this pivot. I'm actually going to set it on the bottom. These aren't the best pivots, but they'll do for now. Okay, so I think we have our base stuff covered. Now, the one thing we're missing here is the 45-degree angles for Chi-Chi to maneuver her way or his way. Or not Chi-Chi. Does the snowflake have a name?
Snowbit.
Snowbit?
Yep.
Cool. Does Snowbit have a gender? Yeah, is it just... Okay, cool.
Maybe snow.
Snowbit. Okay, so we don't have 45-degree angles. Now, I could create either a full tunnel system for my game, or I could just create chunks. It all kind of depends on how elaborate you want to get with all this stuff. You can use a lot of your ice and kind of smush things together. Again, it really, really depends on how much you're going to do. I actually need some of these ice walls that are thin as well. I forgot. I didn't do that. Not do the pivots for these. I guess I did these ones. Okay, so this is going to be my ice wall thin. This is going to be my ceiling, ice ceiling long, ice wall long, thin. And what else? Okay, so I have that, I have ceilings, and then these may need to transition to like different angles. So I may need some variations of these. I'm probably going to do a short, medium, and long as well, but I might want a 45-degree angle out of this one. So I'm going to make a quick little one here. This one. Doesn't have to be a perfect 45. It all depends on how, particular you want to get with your snow building and how long it's going to be. I probably don't want to make it too long. You're going to be able to scale stuff in Engine a little bit, but if you have textures on your stuff, scaling can only go so far. Eventually, you're going to start stretching out your textures, and it's going to look bad. So you may not be able to stretch them out as much as you would like. So be wary of that. So let's set our pivot over here, and let's do the same thing with the floors as well. I made an arbitrary size here, but that's okay. So let's imagine this one's over here. We're gonna kind of make it the same size. I'm just eyeballing a lot of things. I would be way more careful doing stuff for like work, but for today's purposes and speed, I'm just gonna kind of eyeball some stuff. You all have to kind of consider the size of Snowbit and what you can fit through. And that's the reason why we block out a lot of this stuff, is that if this stuff doesn't work, what I'm gonna spend like an hour in class today so far, not even blocking this stuff out. That's not a lot of time to lose if this stuff isn't working. If I went through and I textured all of this and made it look great, and then I found out it stunk, that's a big deal, right? Now, for the Chi-Chi team, let's say specifically, on your concepts, in areas where only Snowbit can go, like here, I'm assuming Snowbit can only go here, you may need to make a decision whether there's snow on top of this stuff in areas that Snowbit can go, but Chi-Chi can't go, right? Or is the snow tops only for Chi-Chi, right? So that's a big kind of telegraph. Do the insides of Snowbit areas, are they kind of basic, or do they have some other telegraph that's for that? Or is scale enough? Scale's probably enough, and it'll be kind of up to you whether snow gets in here. I think you probably, when you painted this, you put snow in places where snow would fall. And areas like caverns and stuff like that, obviously snow wouldn't fall. I mean, this, I guess, whole area is a cavern, so I guess it doesn't really make sense, but it's a good telegraph anyways. I do like your telegraph, so. So let's talk about that maybe later on. And then how do we end this, right? Does it just end in a wall, right? Is that okay? I guess it would be end in a, like one of these walls. Is that an okay dead end for my tunnel? Do I want a round end that I could put stuff in? Again, this is going to be how elaborate do you want to go through. If you're going to have round ends, that's a whole other system of meshes you're going to be making and adjusting and creating for. But for now, let's see how far we can get with whiteboxing what we have here, and let's see how it looks. Okay, so I'm going to export this thing. Now, unfortunately, I don't. Again, unless 2023 has it, Max doesn't have a good batch exporter. I usually download one from like a macro script where you can export all meshes together. I typically make this is like a big part of my job is creating these like first tileable kind of sections for things, and I like to block things out and do a lot of the level design at my work. So a lot of times I have a Max file like this where I have like 50 meshes or 100 meshes that are chunks of these modular bits. And I don't want to go through and go export selected on every single one of these things. So I will actually use one of the, sorry guys, can you keep it down a little bit over there? 3x, X. I'm just recording this too, so export batch. One I usually use, I think that's the one I usually use. Yeah. So I could download this here. Where's the little download file? Boop, 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 boop. Nope. School stops me from doing this, but hopefully not. Dun. Sure, yeah. So I'm just going to drag this in here. It should just work. I think it installed it. Did you do it? It used to do that. I think it used to work fine. There we go. Just got to drag it in the window. So installed successfully. Then up here, you can go and add this window up here. I always forget how to do that. It's on the website too. They show you how to add it over here. I believe they used to have a little link to it. I always forget how to do it here. Export features, import, figure it out. Customize, user interface, and then it's toolbars. Batch export importer. And then can I just drag this up here? No. I always forget how to do this. Apologies. Animation layers. Oh, I just want it like in the main one. Quads, menus. Dang it. I always forget how to do this part. I'll just add a shortcut to it. Customize. Oh, I guess it's in here. Oh wait, Max has a new one. Sorry, I forgot. They have a customized hotkey editor. I forgot about that one. All groups, batch. Not in here yet. Maybe it doesn't work in the new 3D Max yet. Or is it maybe just in here? There we go. Let's just put whatever hotkey on there. Yeah. Gotta save this. Get out of here, 3D Max. Okay. So with this one, it opens up this little guy here, which is pretty great. Object export options. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. Or is it? Does this one just do it automatically? I think I have a different one at work. Oh, yeah, okay. No, this one stinks. Where's the good one? Oh, it's doing it. I don't want it to export OBJs. Give me a second here. I always forget how to do this one. Customize hockey editor. I'll get you the good one at school or on Discord. This one doesn't even show you where you can put your stuff. Oh, okay, relax, relax. Anyways, the good one I have, you like put where you want to export your stuff, and then you set all your settings, and it just exports them all for you. It's really good. I'll find that one for you. I don't remember what it's called. But anyways, what you could do is just go to File, Export Selected. And then I usually just I export stuff right into my project. I never really go anywhere else. This PC downloads, so side scroller, assets. Then I would usually do like art. Environments. Is. Ah, this is the one I wanted. Okay, I downloaded the wrong one. Yeah, this one's the newbie one. There we go. See, this one has like a little picture that comes up. I always like it. So customize user interface. Right. Customize hockey editor. Have it so custom. Batch exporter. Okay, this one's much better. So this is the one I like. So this one lets you do some awesome stuff. So you can select all your assets all together. Just make sure they're all named properly. Ice chunk A. Make sure all your stuff is named how you want it to be named. Ice ceiling long 45. Ice wall long thin 45. I like to kind of name them after my angles that I do things. Ice wall edge B. Okay, it uses the naming of your meshes, which is great. You don't have to do that. So you say, hey, this is what I want to export. You can even make you collisions. You can even change your names for it. Then you pick where you want it to export, which is really cool. So we go downloads, side scroller, assets, art, environments, meshes. And then you hit export, and it'll do every single one by one. It'll move them all to 0, 0, 0 if you have that in here. It'll make sure it's all good. So you open up your Unity. Then you go to Art, Environment, Meshes, and then bam, all my stuff is here, which is great. I don't like that one, I like the list. So if I bring all my stuff in here, bam, I should have all my stuff. I have no idea if the scale of this is any good. I did not, attempt to adjust this for scale. But now I have all my stuff here. So I can start trying to make the level for Chi-Chi's. Now I could do a couple things. I could bring a picture of it into Unity like I did in Max and like go over it one by one. We're not going to do that in this one just because I don't really care. Yeah, so we have our ice here. Let's get rid of our grid. All right, and then we can start putting stuff together. Because our meshes are all built nicely, I could use the vertex snap to snap things together. I might have some edges and stuff, but again, these are just placeholder things, so it's not a big deal. I will most likely make prefabs out of all this stuff, so what I would actually do is I would take my snow floor and put it onto my snow wall. So I'll just drag it in there just so they're together. Snow floor, or ice wall small. Right, I'll make sure they're all the same height. I guess I didn't do the pivots really well for this. This one is, let's do 0.1 high. So they're all the same. That way, they're at least all together. All right, so now I can start putting my things together here. I can start making my my platforms. They're not prefabs. Unity will select the individual elements, which is kind of annoying, so it's nice having prefabs as well. All right, and then we can do, let's see what we have here. We have our ice pillars, right? I could start putting these in here. We have our caps as well, so I can start putting my caps in, right? All depends, I'd probably make prefabs out of all this stuff. I have my edges here, right? So I would snap all these guys together too. If you don't know how I'm snapping, I'm using the V key. I learned this last semester. Well, I guess not all of you were in my class, but the V key lets you select a vertex over any object and then move it with that vertex and then snap it as well. I'm going to mirror this one on the other side. This is my ice chunk. Right, so now I have a nice little wall, whoops. Or a nice floor, I have that. I can put this guy up on here. This is where, Chi-Chi can jump up here. And I can start doing some fun stuff with a lot of these things, right? So I can go ice wall medium, and I can start making platforms and things like that. Because my snow is bigger, it means it can sit on top of this pretty well. Yeah, I did a poor job on my pivots, but that's fine. It doesn't really matter if they Z fight in the back, right? So I could do that. If it's fighting over here, I may need smaller platforms. I can shrink this guy down a little bit, but I can't really shrink him down 50%. So I may need to go back into 3D Max and make all new versions of these guys. You can edit poly, you can edit them all together. I might need ones that are half as big, or if I want them to be exactly half as big, I can cut them. Just delete the bottoms, right? So if I don't want any of the scaling, so then I would do ice wall small, short, or whatever, right? Or short, small, whatever you want to call it, right? So consider that when you're naming all your stuff, how you're going to organize it, right? For today's purposes, I'm just going to shrink stuff, pretend this is all working super great. Right, but I could go through and start making some fun things. And I'm going to run into issues. I'm going to start getting over here, and I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, okay, so maybe, yeah, I don't want this to go all the way here. So maybe this will just go over here. This one I want over here because it ends like that. I guess I can't have these just ending like that as well, so I might need to put these in here. And I would make prefabs out of all this stuff, you know, depending on how modular your things were, how different or unique all your stuff is. I would definitely prefab up a lot of this stuff. Maybe like that. And this one here, I'm doing a very sloppy job, but that's fine. All right, and then I can go through, and I don't want the snow on this, so now I want to make sure I have prefabs without the snow, right? And then I can go through and do something like that. Right, and again, some scaling is okay, so if I go through and I scale this one up a little bit, it's perfectly fine. If your stuff is just colors, then it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you like, right? And then I could start thinking about, okay, well, so over here, Chi-Chi and Chi-Chi can run over on this stuff. Some of my stuff's kind of linked up weird, but I'm not really paying attention to that right now. So I'm gonna need my ceiling over here, and then I think I have a floor somewhere here too. Where did my floor go? I guess this is my floor. Right, so then Chi-Chi can go over, I guess not Chi-Chi, but Snowbit can go over here. But I don't want them necessarily going over there, so let me lower this just for making it fast today. Boop. Say there. This. All right, and okay, so now I want them to go, this is what, my wall, and this is my ceiling. So, okay, I have that, but maybe I want it to go the other way. So I can mirror this. Then I can mirror this one as well. If you want to mirror stuff, you could just do a -1 on whatever axis you want to mirror stuff on. Right, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can kind of eyeball this stuff, or I can make it perfect. It all depends on what you want to do for your game, right? And then you could be like, oh, yeah, that part looks really ugly. Should I make a little end piece? Should my 45s just end right here so I could just nudge them up on things? Or can I use some of my ice pieces to just hide stuff, because it's game dev and who gives a crap if, you know, you just smush stuff together. Now, is this a bad telegraph? Will people think that Snowbit can't go through here? Is that maybe a destructible? Should I leave some more space over here that she can make it through? Stuff like that. All right, maybe this part, oh god. Part will go like this. Maybe, you know, if I had one that was shorter, it would fit in better there, so I don't really want to scale it, but for now, I will because of time constraints. Again, you could scale a little bit. There's nothing wrong with scaling a little bit here and there. And then I got to figure out what the heck to do with all these spaces, right? So is it okay for me to take some of this stuff and just smush it up and scale it a little bit? Right? What do I do with these areas? Do I need custom assets? Do I need to rethink how my modular pieces fit together? Do I just create a big hunk of snow, a big hunk of ice, which I do this a lot for games? Necessarily ice, but just a hunk of something, right? So this is gonna be really crappy. I apologize. All right, so I'm just gonna go through here and just gonna make like an ice chunk. It's gonna be very, very 3D. All right. right now, but it's fine. Go, whatever. Hunk of ice, all right? Ice chunk. Oh wait, is that what I called the other one? I did. Damn it, ice. Call them beefy. Beefcake. So be my ice beefcake. Okay, 6 quarter. Ice beefcake. Okay, we have our ice beefcake here. And ice beefcake is just gonna be ice beefcake. Why do you have the wrong material on you? Did I? Oh, you know what? So when you export stuff out of Max, it actually is very important what materials are on there because it'll unify them together. And it's important that you name your materials accordingly because then it'll, like you could share materials when you import stuff. So now we have our ice beefcake, and I could just use ice beefcake to cover up my mistakes. Ice beefcake's gonna save your life. There, problem solved. Right? No one will know the difference. It just looks kind of cool, right? And I could put ice beefcake in other areas where um, things are looking weird. I'd probably make a few beefcakes, right? Just so you're not using the same one all over the place. And then that way I can have a nice back area that's flat. And I would model these out on the depth as well too, here and there with the texture, just so they're not completely flat, so you have some nicer lighting. But you can see Ice Beefcake is getting some nicer lighting already, comparatively, and we can smush them together, here and there. He would probably have like a fun texture or something like that on him. If you like, I could show you how to make a shader where all the snow will go on top of your mesh regardless of how you rotate it. Little world space, whatever. So there we go. Now we got some Chi-Chi stuff, all right? Now this was, an hour and a half of work or so, making really crappy models. These are by no means whatsoever, final models. I still haven't made my ceilings. I would still need to do that. I would do the same approach. I wouldn't use these ceilings. I would do like a different color like you guys have with, maybe different ice. They would need their own platforms, and I would need to figure out how the hell I'm making stuff like this, right? And you can do it in the very clean modular kind of way where you're making 45s and stuff like that, or you could just make a lot of fun meshes, right? So here's another way of doing something like this. So let's say we're going to do our ceiling over here. So let's do cave ceiling A. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to make some wobbly kind of bits. Okay, whatever, ceiling A. And I'm gonna do stuff that's not very much on scale, all right? So ceiling B or whatever is gonna just go to a much smaller chunk here, something like this. Okay, and then I'm gonna make another chunk that is, actually one I'm just gonna make that's a filler, just so I could kind of have that in places. Then I'm gonna make one that's just kind of like a hanging down bit. All right, yours are very smooth, so I'd make a smoother one. That, just like a dangle bit. And then same with these ones. So this one, I guess I would make, this is like a little platform, but basically this is what we're gonna start working on. So I love this new Max thing that they added in 2023. The chamfers are actually like way better. It's great. Older one, but I like it. So whatever, here's my little ice platform doodad, and I'm gonna do the same thing over here. I'm just gonna kind of try and eyeball some, that one could be used for that. Maybe I'll do like a big one. Oops, that you have over here, like this thing here. So maybe like a big chunk like this. Maybe I need a smaller one as well that doesn't really have the platform in there. That's just like a cool little thing like that we can put places, maybe even like have it like fully coming out. I'm not really worried about stuff being open-faced or whatever right now. I don't really care. Then what else? Maybe we'll need like a really thin one, like a thin and long one. And the thing is with your maps, they don't have to stay perfectly, to the map, right? It doesn't matter if your art, like your design changes a bit when you start white boxing stuff, because who cares, right? It doesn't, as long as it's fun and interesting and whatever, that's okay. Right? You have like these like pointy ones here. And then we have like some crazy swirly ones too, which may be a little tougher to make. At home, my shortcut for connect is C, and I do it once in a while. So let's say we have these like swirly ones here. They don't need to be like a full platform, but I probably just want it to be open like that, but maybe just some like crazy shapes, like a L shape, a C shape. Depending on how crazy you want it to be. And then I can basically just kind of smush my way through this stuff. Even like this stuff, I can try and find, I can make like a ceiling kind of beef cakey kind of mesh and just try and smush stuff together. So let's do, guys, you know what, I'm just gonna quickly name these things. Yeah, cave, ceiling, score. Oh, does it do plus object name? I don't really want object name. Can I add a suffix, or is that, I guess I could do that in Max, hold on. Name objects, so cave, ceiling, underscore, oh wait, they have a numbered one, sweet. Oh, too many. No? You can't do less numbers? Well, very well. Close enough, whatever, just for today's class, because we're running low on time. So then I go through here, now I have all my cave ceiling stuff, right? It's not named very well, so I don't know what the hell's what. But you can start laying this stuff down, right? So I have, hold on. Look bright enough. Unity just kind of plops your stuff in the middle of nowhere. In Unreal, you could like snap to things regardless. You could do that in Unity if they have collisions, but it doesn't always work. What I always do is once I place one mesh that I like, I can go to copy position, and then I could just do that to all my new objects. So if you notice when I did these, I dragged them all in at once, so they were all in the same place. I could just put them in a good starting spot, and then I could move them around. So kind of up to you how you want to handle that, but again, this is really crappy. I'm just kind of intersecting stuff, but I would be a little bit more careful if I was properly making my levels. But again, I could just kind of just have some fun and smoosh stuff around, right? So I can make, yeah, let's make a platform over here. Actually, maybe I'll do something else. Maybe this guy will go up here. This one will go over here. I could be a lot more casual with the ceiling if I want to be, and then I could have meshes that kind of go over top of all this stuff to clean it up. So again, really up to you how you want to work, how, you know, how clean, how kind of messy you want to work. None of it is wrong. Working messy is not a bad thing. It just all really depends on how you like to work and what you like to do. And then how you texture your stuff. So make sure your telegraphs are still there. You're finding ways to educate your player on stuff. Other than that, it doesn't really matter, right? So, and then yeah, you could have basically, you know, same kind of idea up here, and cover up a lot of these 90-degree edges with just smushing stuff together, right? And, you know, I would make another set of one of these. I would make like a whole set of icicles. And then you could hang those from the top. Cover up any seams or areas that you don't like. I'd probably make like 3 or 4 icicle sets for my ceiling. And then you start eventually getting a level together, right? So whether you smush stuff, whether you do this, right? I would probably even make like a snow cap area or mesh. So let's pretend we're doing this and we have this over here. You know, I would actually probably chant for all my snow too eventually. But would make myself like a little snowdrift. Depending on how big or small it is, you could get away with no collisions on them. Like the character could go in the snow a little bit. It's not a big deal. Depending on what it is, if it's rocks, obviously that won't make as much sense. But with snow, you know, you have some. You have freedom with snow to let people walk through, like walk on really straight collisions, even if your meshes aren't straight, because whatever, the ground isn't straight and the snow is now deeper here and there, right? So no big deal, which is really nice. Sand and stuff like that. So, oh my god, every time. So I'm gonna do that like 500 more times. So, done. I can even make my mesh kind of go over my stuff a little bit if I wanted to. May look bad, it may look good. Oh my god. Okay, whatever. Crappy snowdrift. A loosey-goosey mesh, so I'm just gonna put the pivot on the bottom. Sir, did you not export? Good. Be an error or something. Sometimes you gotta restart Macs. do stuff like that. If I had a few snowdrifts, they would be of different varying sizes. Right? And then you could start getting your level looking a lot more, I don't know why I switched that. You could start getting your level looking a lot more organic and start hiding the fact that a lot of these things are, you know, hard edges like that. And I'm still not breaking my, you know, telegraphs and things like that for Chi-Chi. So there you go. You know, and then the nicer these meshes are, the nicer they'll blend together and hide a lot of the edges and stuff like that. But there we go. So now we're starting to feel like it's a lot more of an organic level. It's starting to look a lot nicer, and again, we're going to start running into issues. That's the other awesome thing about doing this, is eventually we're going to be like, oh, we didn't really think about this or that or whatever it happens to be. Like, you know, we need either more beefcakes or better meshes to cover stuff up, or to think about whatever issue we're having. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. Hopefully that's helpful. I don't know how much of this you've seen before in your like level design or environment art classes or whatnot. This is how I like to work. This is how a lot of the industry still works. We do a lot of modular work. We try and avoid as much custom work as possible because it takes a tremendous amount of time. Custom assets look great, obviously, you know, but there's only so much time you have on a project to make some custom stuff. So if you have a really big key shot with a big mountain with a face in it, sure, you're going to custom paint that and model it and stuff like that. But for most things, you want to be as modular as you can. And by showing you can do this kind of stuff on your portfolio and that this is how you're thinking and modeling and texturing is a very beneficial thing for you getting a good job. You know, people want to know that you understand this stuff. They can teach you to be a better artist, better modeler. They can teach you how to use the tools better, tips and tricks and things like that. But they want to see your thinking, your understanding of the development process of building things in a modular kind of way. So anyways, and yeah, these are just white boxes. So let's take a look over here. Let's go back for a second. Let's hide this guy here. Oops. So with that, we have 32 objects, right? For walls and floors and ceilings, just for our cave so far. It's 32 objects that we'd have to model and texture and make so far. And that's on the low side for the most part. If I look at all of the maps of Chi-Chi, you know, there might be issues, or not issues, but things I would find that I would want to address in other levels as well. So obviously, there's the gameplay icicles that you have. If you have any floating platforms, I didn't address what floating platforms would look like. How do people know this is floating, if that's what this is? You know, how does that work? You know, for the most part, I think we get most of this done from what you have here. But if there's any destructibles, moving objects, you know, what do icicles sideways look like? They probably look a little different than the ones on the top. Maybe not. And anyways, I used Chi-Chi as an example because I really liked your map paint overs, and I thought they were actually both your teams. I looked at both your teams. Both your teams are actually ones I could have really used. So don't think I picked one or the other for any specific reason. But because even like Luminate, you actually did a very good job already breaking down your stuff into kind of modular chunks already. Right, you did a really good job. Oh my God, get out of here. You let me scroll and then tell me I have to log in. You guys did a really good job like thinking about breaking that down, but you may also run into issues on how to telegraph certain things to players. You may find it gets boring after a while to have the same stone and wood everywhere, so you may need to think of ways to make things look different or interesting while keeping them modular. That's the other issue you'll come through with this too, is that eventually this is going to look very samey, and you're going to be like, okay, well, what can we do to change this up, to have some fun with it and whatnot. So anyways, thanks. I'll post this video on somewhere.